Language and ideology, variations in class, gender, ethnicity, and nationality.
A pleasant day to everyone. I am John Ray Tubal and I am one of the speakers for today's discussion. And also, I would like to give acknowledgement to my group mates who made this presentation possible. So, here are the list of my co-speakers. We have Grisal Tumon, Precious Gift Inot, Dea Mel, Charlene Tindok, May Silawan, Raymark Tuwan, Charlo Tangkong, and Charmel Yatun. And we are the Group 3. So there are four subtopics that has been aligned for this lesson, which are the language and ideology, variation in class, language and gender, language and ethnicity, and lastly the language and nationality. So now let's dig into the first subtopic of this lesson, which is the language and ideology. So now let's define the two, the language and ideology. So language is the principal method of human communication. This is the tool we use for our communication. And ideology is the system of ideas and ideals which one creates the principle, the basis of economic and political theory and policy. They link the language to identities, institutions, and values in all societies. So it's quite different that people speak differently, even those who share the same native language. So there are reasons why they speak in different ways. So remember the speech situation in a speech event. As an example for this is let's look at America, a presidential speech, and two young students who were joking in a locker room in a school campus. So as you can see the differences in a speech, if they both of them they share the same native language, but the speech situations are quite different because in presidential speech, the president, she or he speaks the speech formally, while the two young students they speak casually because they don't even set that formality in having conversation. So during also we can include last example, we can include the teacher to students and the students to students communication as an example for this, because in student teacher to student communication, as you can see, the speech situations are more formal because the teachers are really speaking formal towards to his or her students for her to disseminate the lesson effectively, while the students they are usually speak casually and having conversation. So during the 19th century, most people thought that physical differences and the language were closely connected. That is, people were thought to speak differently because of race. So the people before they believed that the language you should use is based on what race you are in. That way they believe in. So, in the early 20th century, Franz Boas vehemently argued that there is no relationship between race, language, and culture, though this often fell on deaf ears. So, this statement from Franz Boas would definitely contradict the ideas of the 19 people before. So, he believes that there is no relationship between race, language, and culture. An example for this is us Filipinos, we are Asian. That is our race. We are Asian, but we speak English. We speak different languages from other race because we had been colonized by the Spaniards and the Americans before. So we have their culture. We practice their culture even today. Still exists. So another example for this is a Chinese child who is American island born. So basically, she practiced the language of the American has and the culture they have, and even she has the nationality of a Chinese and Asian race. but the things, the language, the culture she practiced is the language and the culture of Americans, because it really doesn't base on the race. The the language you use doesn't really base on the race you have or even the culture you practice. It's a matter of what you believe in and what you practice and what you usually do every day. And this would definitely depends on the statement of Franz Boas that there is no relationship between race, language, and the culture. So, who is Franz Boas? So, Franz Boas is a German-born American anthropologist. He was called as the father of anthropologists, and I guess Franz Boas is the best example um, for his statement that there is no relationship between race, language, and the culture. As you all know, he was a German-born, but he was being called or being well known as the father of American anthropologists. Language ability is separate from religion, occupation, financial status, and all aspects in culture. So, in this statement, it's clearly stated that there is no connection or relation between um, language ability we have on the religion we have to the occupation we have, our financial status, and even the culture, because this proves that everyone can speak the language, different language, even though they have different religion, even they don't have that great salary for their occupation, they don't get that high financial status or even their culture, because it definitely wants to tell people that if you know a certain language, you can practice a lot of language as you are willing, you have the hard work. It really doesn't matter to your occupation, to your religion, to your financial status and culture. As you are really passionate in learning a lot of languages, then you can. So ethnicity, nationality, and race could also create a language variation. So this tree, we have a lot of ethnic groups, we have a lot of nationalities, we have a lot of race. So, and all of this can give or can offer a lot of variation in language to the universe. So language ideology is a social form and the forms of speech. And there you have it, guys. That's all include all the learnings for this topic. And now let's move to the next topic for for the entire lesson, which is the variation in class.
Hi everyone, my name is Cherilyn Bitindo, and together with my partner May and Silawan, we will be tackling about the language, social class, and identity. One of the most manifestations of social class is found in the language. It is more so than personal positions, styles, or place of residence. The purpose of this is to reduce class distinctions to economic education, familial prestige, and some other ways people might rank themselves in the society. According to John J. Gumperz, 1958, he was an American linguist and academic who spent 2 years in the Indian village of Kalafor. About 8 miles to North Delhi, he stated that even there was 5,000 population at this time, when he conducted his research, it was divided into 31 endogamous castes, and none of which had an equal status. The larger castes had special word for items of their subcultures such as food, clothing, and even places where the class differences are less pronounced, similar kinds to linguistics satisfaction can be found. An American linguist, William Lavov, he is the founder of the discipline of variationist social linguistics, William Levov conducted a well-known study of social linguistic change. This study was conducted in some department store in New York City in 1962. This study was all about the relationship of the social status of the speakers and their pronunciation of the R sounds. The variation of phonetic feature under consideration range from the absence of R altogether to its presence in post-vocalic position. For example, the words car, card, for, and fort. They pronounce it as car, cad, fo, and fort. These stores are ranked by their status, high, middle, and low. The conclusion of Levov studies that sales fall in the highest ranked store will have the highest value of R. These in the middle ranked store will have the intermediate values of R. And those who in the lowest ranked store will show the lowest values of R. And he recorded that words phonetically, nothing monotony, the store in which the data were obtained, but also the gender, function, race, and approximate age of informant. Now let's talk about what is hypercorrection. Hypercorrection is an attempt to approach a presumed standard, goes too far, and produces a non-standard form. In Levov's study, show the pronunciation of R sound is in the dialect of New York City was quite variable, depending on social factors such as status or class, and speech context such as casual versus emphatic speech. What is vernacular? Vernacular is the casual, normal spoken from a language or dialect of person's speech community. Collecting authentic data is not that simple matter because speakers are likely to adjust their manners of speaking if they are aware of being careful, observed, or recorded. Natural speech also tends to characterize topics that help recreate emotions. For example, one asked an informant, "Have you ever been in a situation where you in a serious danger of being killed? What happened?" They advise that tape recording data has a great advantage over writing out phonetic transcription of speech. Recording conversation between two or more speakers or recording one speaker long enough for the person to become unconcerned is preferable to recording more or less formal interview that will keep informant relaxed. May I call my partner May Ansilawan to discuss the social networks and its types. Thank you.
For the continuation of Miss Cherylyn's topic, my name is May Ansilawan and I'm going to introduce to you today the social network. So the question is, what is social network? Social network is a structure made up of a set of social actors. It's a network of social interactions and personal relationship. Social networking is the use of internet-based social media to stay connected with friends, relatives, customers, or etc. So in this connection, it may be appropriate to introduce the concept of social network. Each speaker has a social network that includes all those people with whom speaker. So there are two types of social network. These are the high density network and multiplex density network. Multiplex social network rather. So high density network refers to a group of individuals who are frequent contact and therefore familiar with each other. It can also be summarized as a network design for various or mini wireless LAN clients. So what is wireless LAN? So it is a conservative planning approaches are designed to achieve a good complete wireless LAN supply. At the same time, install a last access point as possible. Example of a high density wireless environment are convenience store, convention centers, lecture room, hotels, and even in the concert hall. The next is multiplex social network. It is one in which interacting parties share more than one rule, often reciprocal. It can be transmitted a large number of signals to a single medium. So note, the denser and more multiplexed a network is, the stronger it is. So the member of a strong network tend to make use of what is referred to restricted code and elaborated code. Restricted code is an informal speech lacking in stylistic range because the speakers share enough assumptions that are some of the meaning of the messages is derived from the context and gestures. It is also suitable for insiders who share assumptions and understanding on the topic. While on the other hand, elaborated code refers to the variety of language used characteristic of relatively formal situations. It does not assume that the listener shared the assumptions of understanding, but it also implicit and does not require listeners to read between the manner of speaking. For the next topic, I will give the stage to the next reporter.
Hello everyone, I am Raymer Camtuan, and the topic that we tackle for today is all about the language and gender. So, in different speech communities, certain variation among males and females occur in the use of the language in accordance to social variations and factors. The variety of speech, which is related to specific gender, social norms, and social variation in the use of the language among men and women is called language and gender, which is a social-linguistic phenomena was observed in interpersonal communication between males and females in the use of the language in a particular gender. Language and gender defines gender within a couple key perspective. First, gender is a component of social relationship, usually loosely connected to perceived variations among the sexes. Gender relate to linguistic and symbolic representations, normative connotations, social communicative acts, education, and social identities. Okay, as we can see on the picture, it shows us how the females communicate and how the males communicate. According to J.K. Chambers, in his textbook on Sociolinguistic Theory, 1995, state that in virtually all sociolinguistic studies that include a sample of males and females, there is clear evidence that women use fewer stigmatized and non-standardized variants than do men of the same group in the same circumstance. So let's define what is fewer stigmatized. So, it means describe or regard as worthy of disgrace or great disapproval. Like, for example, to treat someone or something unfairly by disapproving of her, him, or it. So, people should not be stigmatized on the basis of race. Scholars have described a variety of the differences between the speech of men and women. So, in American English, Some differences have been noted in intonational patterns between male and female speakers. So, let's define what is intonational. So, intonational means the rise and fall of voice in speaking. So, if one analyzes intonational contour as 4 relative pitch level, then tend to use only 3, hardly ever reaching the highest one. Consider, for example, how men and women say the phrase, "Oh, that's terrible." Women range frequently includes 4. Among the contours very rarely heard from men is the full of downledge, from the highest to the lowest pitch level when expressing surprise. For example, when women says, "Oh, that's terrible," and also the man is like, "Oh, that's terrible." So, in general, women's speech appear to be dynamic, making greater use of paralinguistic features and extending over a broader pitch range. Okay, let's proceed to the paralinguistic. There are 4 types of paralinguistic. What are they? First is the volume of how loudly or softly you are speaking. Second, the pitch, how high or low the sounds of your voice are. The third is stress, the amount of emphasis you place on the different words in a sentence. Lastly, the speaking rate, of how fast or slow you are speaking. Okay, there are some lexical differences between the speech of men and women that are fairly common and can be illustrated from the American English. Certain words are used by women much more frequently than by men. Among such words are expressive adjectives that convey approval or admiration. For example, delightful, spectacular, charming, divine, lovely, fascinating, and sweet. Okay, there are some lexical differences between the speech of men and women that are fairly common and can be illustrated from the American English. Certain words are used by women much more frequently than by men. Among such words are expressive adjectives that convey approval or admiration. For example, delightful, spectacular, charming, divine, lovely, fascinating, and sweet. Okay. We can see on the picture earlier one of the example of lexical differences between the men and women in terms of color. So, this may be largely due to the fact that subtle color differences are important factors in women's clothing and makeups. So, and now we all know what are the differences between the men and women. We all know what are the most important by women. So, let's proceed to the men. Men are much more likely to phrase their approval or liking for something by using a neutral adjectives such as fine, good, or great, and reinforcing it, if necessary, with such an adverb as a damn, as in "that was a damn good shows." However, in United States, differences between men's and women's word choices seems to be steadily growing smaller. Example, until a decade ago, sweet and a wisdom. The word sweet and a wisdom were slang words exclusively used by women, but now these adjectives are commonly used by both gender. Okay, a tag in a form of a question may also be attached to an order or a criticism to soften it, as in, like, for example, answer the question with you. Okay, Another purpose of a tag question is to include the person spoken to in a friendly conversation by offering the opportunity to respond, as in, okay, for example is, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? Okay, that's it. Another way women may try to avoid assertiveness is to use so-called hedge word or phrases. By the way, what is assertiveness? Assertiveness in Tagalog is mapamilit, that makes statement less forceful or assertive, such as maybe, rather, perhaps, I guess, sort of, I am wondering, and others. So I have two examples of this in this slide. So number one is, I have been kind of wondering if I should go. Oh well, I guess I might have been right. Number two example is, maybe we should try adding some seasoning. Okay, that is the example of the assertiveness. Okay, here we go. A sentence using a hedge word may even be combined with a tag question. So I have one example in the screen. So the one example that I have is, you are rather tired, aren't you? Okay, that is one of my example with a hedge word combined with a tag question. So once again, a young people, women tend to use less of this type of speech behavior, or to be free of it altogether. So, may I call Miss Crizel Tumun to continue the topic?
Hi everyone, my name is Crizel J. Taman. I am going to discuss to you or to continue of what Mr. Tuan reported about. So, my assigned task is the gender and speech. It is the theoretical movement because many reporters or investigators that are being suggested about gender and speech. They have different theories. From time to time, it has changes. Just like when phonological differences as markers of social class, William Lavube and his students suggested that gender might be marked in a similar fashion. Example, that if you are men, then you should use language or words or have a fashion like men. But they don't fight about it. They don't have to do about it because Ruben Lakoff has a very influential work that time, no? She has a famous work that time that she found out that men and women speak in a various differences. Since Ruben Lakoff has a work named Language and Women Place in 1975, she studied about women's language and observed about women's linguistics. She found out that women should speak like a lady and act like a lady. And here are some examples or included examples that can widen your. So the first included example there is the greater use of tag question. So the greater use of tag question is combined with the positive and the negative statement. No, so I have here an example, the right, don't you think? So as you can see, the positive statement there is the right, then followed by the negative statement, don't you think? So I have here another example. She was a student, which is the positive statement, then isn't she, followed by the negative statement. So as you can see, women are usually using a tag questions than men. They are just constructing words, unlike men that they are direct to the point when they are communicating or they are using their language. So another included or the second included example is the greater use of polite form. So the greater use of polite form is used to avoid to hurt someone's feeling. And women is usually using this, unlike men, because men is a harassed person. They are not soft-hearted person. Unlike women, they are soft-hearted person. So the example here is that, if you don't mind, could you please? So that is the way women use their politeness on asking someone to do things, no? Unlike men, that they are just commending. So the third included example there is the greater use of hedges. So when we say hedges, it is used to answer questions. It is used to soften the words. So the example there is, I kinda like it. So it is a way of women express or women appreciate something, no? And the greater use of hedges, it is usually women's are using about it. It is women is the one who is using about it. Unlike men, when women says, I kinda like it, then men said, I like it. So they are direct to the point. That's why women is usually using the hedges questions to also to avoid or to soften the meaning of the words, or yes, soften the meaning of the words. So the fourth included example here is the greater use of apologies. No, so when we say the greater use of apologies, it is really the women usually using it. So the example there is the sorry to bother you, but. So it is a way women how to interact in apologizing, how to apologize. No, it is a way how women apologize, unlike men that they are really shy on asking apologies. No, and I have here another example, that I was wrong, can you forgive me? So it is another way of women, or it is a usage of women to apologies, because women has a soft-hearted, no, they are using this kind of statement in a soft way. And the last included example is the greater use of intensifier. So the greater use of intensifier is an adverb phrase that strengthens the meaning of the other, or expressions that show emphasis, no. And the example there, that is, that's so adorable. So it is a women's statement, unlike men that they are really direct to the point, saying on how they will appreciate someone or something. So another example here is the real, as in real nice, no? That is a way on how women's intensified their expressions on appreciating things, unlike men that they are just a normal things, no, it is just a normal things for them to use. It is a normal things for them to appreciate, like if they should adorable like that. And unlike men that they have some, oh, that's so adorable, as in real nice, guys, it's my gosh, maganin, that they just saying like that because women is a very OA words, unlike men. And for the addition, the greater use of intensifier for men, they have difference in women, because women really emphasizing the words, or they are really expressing what they want to express to have a meaning, unlike men that they in a greater use of intensifier, men is just have a abusive words, like example, dumb, shit, like that example. Men use intensifier in a way that they use abusive words. So we have three branches on how language was used for a different communicative purposes by men and women. So the first is the subculture theory, second is the social power theory, and lastly is the communicative strategy theory. So the subculture theory talks about how men and women's language are different into each other, in which women's terms are derived from a masculine form that originally terms by men. And while men's language, on the other hand, are suggested as the normative form, because in a simple words, it is the standard words that which women terms are being derived. For example, actor. Actor is in standard form, which is the term of men. Then it is inserted by an actress, which is the term of women. So that So the original words actor, then the female's term being derived there and become actress. And the other example are the waiter become waitress. Deborah Tannen is an active proponent of a subculture theory. She is known as an advocate of this notion and a professional with selling a popular book named You Just Don't Understand Women and Men in a Conversation in 1990. Second is Talking from 9 to 5, Men and Men's at Work in 1994. And last is That's Not What I Mean, on how conversational style makes or break a relationship with others, and it is in 1986. So Deborah Tannen calls a gender-associated varieties of language as genderless. So according to Tannen, gender has a different conversational goal. So for men, conversational goal is to send a factual and a short conversation, and it is called the report style. Report style, guys, because it is sending or it is giving an information, a short, a concise, and precise information. There's no flowering words, unlike women. So the conversational goal of women is to build a relationship in a conversation among a participants, and it is called rapport style. So rapport style because it builds friendship, relationship. It has a long conversation and has a flowering word. So well, as you observe, women is really have many words in communication other than men, because men is giving or direct to the point in communicating, unlike men that they are going to strengthen or they are going to long the conversation to build a friendship or a relationship. So the second branches is the social power theory. So the social power theory talks about how gender is not necessarily they consider in one speech pattern. When we say social power, it relates on the position in the society. So if you have a higher and a more powerful position in the society, the higher linguistic advantage are. But the said gender differences when it comes to women's language. A woman's position in the society is different from men. So basically, it puts women at disadvantage, no? And it really relates before and even now that women has no right or even has no power or have a lot of power to have a higher position in the society. Unlike men, that men known as a powerful and a brave one into the position in the society. So if you have a higher and a more position in the society, the higher linguistic advantage are, for example, men have a higher and a powerful position in the society, then they have a higher linguistic advantage. That's why women has a advantage into their language because they don't have a power to go through into a powerful position in the society. Genderless, so it means gender dialect that men's and women's have their own dialect respectively. So it shows how the way men and women communication. It shows that both gender has differences. There's no superior, there's no inferior in terms of using their dialect. But in genderless, it explains that both gender, male and female, men and women's, that they have different dialect that being used.
Good day everyone, I am Precious Gift Inot, and I will report language, race, and ethnicity together with Dea Fretzel. So what is language? What is your idea about language, race, and ethnicity? So let's define first language. Language is a method of communication, contains a set of sounds, written symbols, and signs, describes our shared norms, values, culture, and perspectives. Language is to understood, create, and sharing of our identities with others. So, next is race. Race refers to a category of people who share certain inherited physical characteristics, such as skin colors, facial features, and stature that refers to outside appearances, like African American or Black, Asian, European American or White, Native American, and some other race. Last is ethnicity. In the other hand, it is pertaining to cultural traits such as language, religions, beliefs, and dress code. For example, someone might be identified as Filipino or other ethnicity, depends on what they look like, on how they speak, what religion are they from. One example of English language that includes race and ethnicity is AAE. So AAE corresponds to African American English, or also known as Black English. It is a dialect or language that commonly used by many African Americans, and it is somehow different from standard English. It is open to criticism. So as an individual, you need to be more specific on labels or identity on something or someone you are referring. Thus, these labels should be used with some degrees of caution. So how do we characterize AAE? AAE is characterized by three: pronunciation, syntactic structure, and vocabulary. Pronunciation is the way a word or language is spoken and uttered words. Example of it is a vowel sound. I'll give you examples. So the word HOP, or read as hop, hop. And if we add silent E in the word HOP, it will be read as hope, hope. So, other example is BIE, pronounced as bit, bit. So now, we will add silent E on the last word. So, it will be pronounced as bite, bite. From hop, it will become hope. From bit, it will be pronounced as bite. Another example of mispronounced word is PROSTRATE. Some pronounce it as prostrate, but the right pronunciation of it is prostrate, prostrate. The next example is the word MISCHEVOUS. Many pronounce it as mischievous, mischievous. They prolong the letter CHE, but the right pronunciation of it is mischievous, mischievous. So, let's move on to vocabulary. Vocabulary refers to the words we must understand to communicate effectively. A list of words which has definitions. For example, impassive means not feeling or showing emotion. And ambivalence means to state of being uncertain or stuck between two or more options. Next is the use of AAE. It is used from religious and civil rights leaders to school dropouts, spending most of the time in the street of black ghettos. But because of dialectal variation or the changes in language due to various influences that exist in AAE, only some of its prominent and common characteristics are discussed. After we discuss AAE, the next is AAVE, or African American Vernacular English. So, the vowels of AAVE tend to be much more variable than consonants. It's because of vowel contrast and standard English are likely to be lost in such word pairs. Like, instead of pride and proud, this will become pride and prod in AAVE. In pronunciation, AAVE tend to be pronounced alike only if vowels are followed by the consonants. Such word pairs as oil and oil, and sure and shore. The least stable consonants of AAVE are those found at the end of the words, like sound written as TH may be heard in the final position as F, like the word fifth. But in AAVE, it will be fifth, not fifth. So other final consonants are frequently subject to similar simplification, like the pronunciation of desk for desk and list for list. This word is often not emphasized the sounds, or often pronounced shortcut. They shortcut the words. So, grammatical differences are usually more noticeable than the differences in pronunciation or vocabulary. So, it is because the use of proper grammar that is associated with the style of speaking in the dialect of language. That's why words will be noticed because of the way you speak the words or the letters. So the third subtopic we have is difference of AAVE to Standard English. In comparison with Standard English, AAVE is characterized by multiple negation. For example, the word be or be, as in she be busy, contrast in AAVE corresponding to she busy. The word she busy is made the time when it is happening, and she be busy is the repeated state of being busy. So in Standard English, it is a dialect or one variety of English among many, or it is universal. It has a specific pronunciation and accent. So example is, she is always busy. She is always busy. Or she often busy. She is always busy means busy all the time. Lastly, how did African American English come about? The making of AAE dates back to the 17th century, when the slave ships brought African slaves into southern colonies. The cargoes of slaves were assembled from a variety of tribes speaking different languages. Because of it, language that they developed in English became a Pale-English. The traders planned it to put the slaves with different languages in a ship to avoid rebellion. So, it is said by Captain William Smith in 1744. That's all. Thank you, and I will give the floor to Miss Bea Fritzen.
So hi everyone, this is Dea Frazomel, and this is the continuation of the topic language, race, and ethnicity. So in Gambia, it is part of the Africa. Okay, there are so many native languages, and the Europeans go there to trade slaves, not just in Gambia but to other nations as well. So since they traded so many people from different places which has different languages, they were not able to understand one another. So they have this so-called pidgin, so that they could understand each other, not just the slave themselves but also the captors and the overseas peoples. So according to J.L. Dillard, in his hypothesis, when new generation grew up which use only the pidgin creolized to plantation. So when we say pidgin is, according to Merriam, pidgin is a simplified speech used for communication between two or more people with different languages. So as I said earlier, that the Europeans traded slaves from Gambia, since which is part of a country part of Africa, since Africa back then is known to be slaves. Am I right? So they are not able to understand one another. So in order for them to understand one another, they need to know or to learn a certain language or a certain kind of communication for them to understand one another. So that is the so-called pidgin. And many beliefs, and even some educators and educational psychologists have claimed that African American children from urban ghettos are verbally deprived. When we say verbally deprived, like there are so many errors in their communication, way of communication. They mispronounce words, slur endings, mumble, answer incomplete sentence, repeat grammar errors, very limited vocabulary, and to use English sloppily and illogically. So that's the life in Gambia, not just Gambia itself, but the other part of Africa. That's why we have the so-called AAE, African American English. Rather than simply or random and corrupted version of standard English, AAE or African American English is just a rule governed as another form of English, but the rules that characterize its usage are somewhat different. For me, as a student, as a person, the AAE or the African American English is not that worse. I mean, it's not that really wrong. I mean, it's understandable. If you could see there on the book that Sir has given to us, there are some example there on how they communicate in an interview by in an interview made by an interview held by Labov, an interview of a 15-year-old child. So I was not able to include in the PPT their actual interview script. I'm just going to read it. Okay, here are some. I'm just going to read few, and I'm really trying to imitate the way they pronounce their words and the way they say it. It is according to the script. Okay, here it is. Interviewer: what happens to you after you die? Do you know? And the name of the interviewee is Larry. Okay. Yeah, I know. Just bear with me. I'm just trying to imitate, as I've said earlier. What? The interviewer said. After they put you in the ground, your body turns into bones and shit. Sorry for it is. I was just reading the script. What happens to your spirit? The interviewer asked. Your spirit, soon as you die, your spirit leaves you. And where does the spirit go? Well, it depends. On what? You know, like some people say, if you're good and shit, your spirit gone to heaven, and if you're bad, your spirit gone to hell. Something like that. I think I can't imitate the way they speak, or the way they pronounce, or the way they say. Yeah, but just search it on YouTube or Google. Everything is there. It was just, and as you can see in the interview, the child is a bit defensive in the way he answer, defensive at the same time. Like in our case, like especially we Filipinos, we could say that there's no manners in the way he answered the questions, but it is actually in their own culture, like it is the way they talk, the way they answer. For them, it's natural. It is what it is. and Oakland, California School Board resolution statement includes, so because of that, since it is not, how am I supposed to say this, like hindi siya pasado sa permission to speak vernacular, hindi siya pasado sa standard English, because if we base it in standard English, it is very wrong. Grammatically wrong, pronunciations are wrong, and the way they deliver is wrong. So, the Oakland, California School Board proposed a resolution towards this problem. Not really a problem. The statement includes that numerous validated scholarly studies demonstrate the African American students as a part of their culture, as I've said, and history as an African people possesses and utilize a language described in various scholarly approaches as Ebonics. Yes, and so when we say Ebonics, it is the black sounds, or the African language, or African, the way they communicate, or their language to be exact. And that these studies have also demonstrated that African language systems are genetically based and not dialect of English. So it is very well said, no? an African American dean at Howard University Standard English. While this dean is also a African American himself. So, regarding that resolution, these are the following that emphasize the points in the presentation of Ebonics controversy. Number 1, there is no question that so-called Ebonics is one among many variations of English, more specifically of the AAE or the African American English. Number 2, not helping African American students to become proficient in Standard American English will do them socioeconomic disservice. Okay, so when we say disservice, it is somehow like a disfavor in terms of the Standard English. Okay. We have number 3, it might be helpful to use Ebonics, the black sounds, in some manner with students who speak if doing so aid them in learning Standard English. So it says here that the AAE or the African language can help the African people itself in learning the Standard English. And number 4, we have the competence in more than one language or dialect is an asset. So number 4 here trying to says is that the ability of acquiring or knowing or having more than one dialect or a language can be an advantage. And that's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon. My topic for today is all about language and nationality. According to Woolard 1989, that in the last decades of the 20th century, many scholars argued that ethnicity is not always the survival of culture diversity, born of geographical and social isolation, but may be the outcomes of intensive interaction, constellation of practices that involve to channel complex social relation. When we speak of language, they often link it ethnicity. We believe that language is not important attribute that forms identity of nationality, and its development and evolution are contingent upon the development and evolution of that group. At the same time, when we speak of nationality, we also always think about language. We feel that its nationality cannot be considered apart from its language, and that the nature of language influences the development of a nationality. As a matter of fact, language and nationality have their own characteristics and laws of development. From the perspective of target of the study, they are therefore two different objects. The study of language is known as linguistic, whereas the study of nationality is known as ethnology. What is nationality? Nationality is the status of belonging to a particular nation or origin, birth, or naturalization. Here are some examples of what is nationality. The word nationality is not often used in spoken English. It is formal and official word, and it appears more frequently in written English. You will find the word nationality is used a lot in the travel industry and for immigration. Nationality is the state of being part of nation, whereas by birth or naturalization or ties to a specific nation. For example, the nationality is to a German person born in Germany. An example, nationality is Italian to a person with Italian roots born in the United States. And that's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlo Tangkong, and now I'm going to continue of what Mr. Yaton report regarding with language and nationality. In this video, we're going to take a look how language operates and how language construct meaning that can both bring people together with the same of understanding, as well as drive people of what differences of opinion and even conflict regarding with certain language with means, and ultimately look at how language exert. Sometimes we might ask this question even more broadly. Should all people in the same nation speak the same language? If the answer of this question is no, and probably most people in the 21st century would agree that what should be the symbolic value of language, especially with regard to groups' solidarity and ethnic identity of its speaker languages. Choice, maintenance, and shift are some of the most important personal and political social issues of any community. This is how we proceed. In this section, we will focus on language and the nation state. We will look at how symbolic value of language is used by the people to pursue political power and hence foster consciousness among members of the group. We will look at the 4 case studies: India, the Czech Republic, Canada, and Spain. As you can see in the slide, there's 4 case studies, and those 4 are the following. We have first India. India is occupying an area only 1/3 as large as the United States, with the 2nd largest population in the world. And we go to the second, the Czech Republic. Czech Republic is the Bohemian kingdom of Czech people ages back to the end of the 11th century, but the first Czech settled in the area and make it their homeland more than for 6th century. And the third, we have Canada. Canada, as in India and the United States, there is a great linguistic diversity in Canada, some 85 languages being spoken. And lastly, we have Spain. According to Gordon, Catalan and Basque are the 2 of the most important minority languages, and they spoke by 15% and 1.4% of the population respectively. In a country where many languages are spoken but do not all enjoy the same degree of prestige, bilingualism multilingualism, and diglossia are common occurrence. As far as I can tell, language reflects personal identity, but something this conflict with the social expectation. That's all. Thank you and God bless.
Hey,